License to Kill. The 16th Eon Bond film, and the second Dalton. Yeah. And the violent one.
God, what a terrible waste of money.
So we've been doing the drinking game. I won't explain the rules, but the rules will be down below. And this was a very small one for the drinking game.
Yeah, 98.
Yeah, so barely, it actually slowed your drinking down.
It's barely worth your time, this, it's just... It did about 12 years since I'd seen this, and this was always a favourite of mine as a child because it was quite violent. And my memory of it was that it was very, very violent, and the received wisdom is it's the 80s violent one. And watching it again, yes, there are moments of violence. There are also these really long, very pedestrian moments of just cramming a lot of plot and exposition in. And I found the experience of watching it slightly dispiriting, slightly tedious. I didn't enjoy it nearly as much as I thought I was going to. And I came away with a similar feeling to the one that I had after we'd watched For Your Eyes Only and Live and Let Die, where my opinion of it had diminished.
Yeah, my opinion of it had gone down as well. This was one of the ones I thought was a top 10 contender, and I think it's just because as a little kid, I like people's heads exploding.
Yeah. The plot in very, very simple terms is that Felix Leiter gets attacked by a drug lord, he gets maimed, his wife gets killed and they imply raped, and also Bond's friend, man in the Caribbean, shark, he gets killed as well, and Bond goes on a mission of revenge. His license to kill is revoked by MI6 and he goes rogue. That's it in very, very basic terms, but the film contrives to insert several unnecessary subplots and narrative threads into there to just make it a bit more of a tangled, tedious mess. But essentially it's Bond goes rogue for revenge.
Similarly, like Quantum of Solace, where you could have had a straight revenge movie. Nope.
Yeah, well, we were watching this and the comparisons to Quantum of Solace were apparent. A revenge film that's sort of muddied by these extraneous additional plot elements. And similarly to Quantum of Solace, when they were making this, the Writers Guild was on strike, which also happened with Quantum of Solace.
Right,
and
okay.
so when they started the film, they didn't have a completed script, which I think was also the case with Quantum of Solace. Yeah. And it shows.
For both.
Yeah.
Dalton's back, angrier than ever.
Yeah.
He's still good. There's less comedy in this one, so it feels more natural for him just to be an angry man who shoots people. But his movies are not what I thought they were, but I still think he's a good Bond.
Yeah, I appreciate him trying to mould his Bond on the Bond from the books. I know that License to Kill is often referred to as the un-Bond Bond film, and I did notice watching it again that his Bond feels quite un-Bond. He felt less like a Bond to me and more like an angry Welshman in Florida.
You were just in time. Things were about to turn nasty.
Robert Davi was another one of the things that I thought was originally great about this movie. I think Robert Davi is a great actor. You don't see so much of him these days due to his outspoken right-wing politics. And very early on in the movie you go, oh yes, he is this great very early on he cuts out a man's heart and spanks a lady, or whips a lady, and you think, oh, he is this uncompromising villain. That's kind of spread out. The rest of the time he's just sort of got a cigarette and goes, huh. And I think he's got enough charisma that he's not a dull villain, but it's not quite as good as I remember.
So besides being immensely entertaining, it also has there's a message in the ravioli.
The Bond women here, you have Pam Bouvier, played by Richard Gere's ex-wife, Carrie Lowe, something like that. And you have Sanchez's squeeze Lupe.
Yeah.
And neither of them have much character. One is the, I'm a CIA agent here to help, and then she falls in love with Bond like that. And then the other one is a damsel in distress who falls in love with Bond like that, and then they're both jealous of each other. And you never feel there's much connection there going on.
No, and given that this is supposed to be Bond going off-grid and doing his own thing, I think never has romantic subplots felt more out of place in a Bond film. You almost feel like he shouldn't sleep with anybody.
No.
He should be so driven and focused and angry and hell-bent on revenge that his head shouldn't be turned by even the most drop-dead gorgeous, enticing woman. There's intent to make a bit of an action star in her own right, and and an equally capable character. But again, it feels half-arsed again, as as it has so often in this series, and you really feel like there's almost no need for them there.
None. Well, and it's funny that you said head turning, because there is a thing in it. He sleeps with her on a boat, pretty much on their first meeting, and then in the film she has a different haircut. She keeps changing her dresses. He can't take her eyes off her.
Oh, yeah. It's astonishing, yeah.
You've seen everything, James.
Presumably, unless he kept his eyes closed.
Also in the film, we have a very young Benicio del Toro. He isn't. I don't think they do a lot with his character. He does have a screen presence.
Oh yeah, he's great actually. He's one of the things that I think it hasn't diminished when you go back and watch it. He's a fairly slight role, but he is just stand there and look menacing, and he does it really, really well. He's brilliant. He's got such a charismatic face. What a pathetic thing. I'm already. He looks good.
Nobody's asking you, gringo.
John Glenn is back again, and he has directed all the Eon Bond films of the 80s. And I don't know if you can tell, we're a bit bored. It's not just John Glenn, it's the producers. They're kind of skating along, and I don't care anymore.
John Glenn is the steady hand at the tiller. He's Cubby Broccoli's man. He's going to do as he's told, as we've said before. He'll bring the thing under budget, but he's not going to bring an enormous amount of vim or originality to it. It's gonna be what it is, which is, the safe pair of hands. Safe hands, John Glenn. Again, bring him in, and it's his last one.
John Glenn is so sort of fucking forgettable as a director. Even, was it CNN, whoever did a report on it, didn't get his name right in a documentary on set.
If we ever let the public down, I think that they always come out and experience some novel things that haven't been done before. Spectacular action is very important to our films.
This one is clearly a bit like the received wisdom of The Man with a Golden Gun. It's the Kung Fu one, and there's very little Kung Fu in it. This is the 1980s action film one. But every now and again they keep going back to Bondyisms and Bond comedy. So a big bar fight turns into nonsense. At the end there's a big set that isn't necessary. It's
a villain's lair.
The villain's lair. It's like, just have Bond as a character and put him in fighting a drug dealer getting revenge, and that would be an interesting change of pace.
You can feel the film being pulled in different directions. Yes, there is a bit of a sense that it's the violent 80s cop movies and action movies that have started to influence this, but it's also being pulled back in we know we're on safe ground with the old Bond stuff. So it's a violent drug lord, and people get their heads explode in decompression chambers, and Felix Leiter gets his legs eaten off alive by a shark, and a woman gets spanked on the arse in the first 3 minutes of the film. But you also still have Bond parachuting into a wedding, and not an attack on a base, but an attack coming out of a base.
Q dressed as a Mexican gardener.
Yeah, the result is kind of a bit of a mess. I don't want duck chow mein and a carbonara pasta on the same plate.
I could do that. Bang bang.
I could do that.
That's a good bang bang.
What's a bang bang?
No, it's not that's where we go have a whole meal at one place and then go right to another place and have another one. Bang, bang.
a chow mein and two very noodly.
I could do it.
That's a lot of carbs. What do you do first though?
You do the duck.
Yeah, because I think the cream would be. Later.
Bam, 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 bam.
One thing that's very much in the sort of 80s is Bye Bye John Barry. He's penned his last Bond theme. He's out. In comes Michael Kamen, who's I think one of the most underrated music composers of all time. He did Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, others. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
I think he was also the conductor for the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra for the Metallica S&M concert, where they played with an orchestra. I think it was Michael Kamen.
Great. Well, I think Michael Kamen's great, and I think some of his score, especially the opening gun barrel, is very dramatic. His action score, when he's heavy with the violins, is good. Goes a little heavy on the... The opening action scene immediately is jarring when you've got a man's heart being cut out, woman being spanked. We keep talking about this, but and then comedy wedding and an action scene where Felix Leiter, and they brought back Felix Leiter from Live and Let Die.
Strangely, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like he's whistling through his teeth when he talks.
Well, it sounds like his false teeth are about to fall out.
And there's embarrassing moments of a guy in a three-piece suit, sort of with tails, with machine guns. This does
morning suit.
It doesn't know what it is.
Yeah.
Women pick up their parachutes as they're led in. There's a man dead with his heart cut out. Huh?
Jarring is the right word, because it could be a spectacular action sequence, and it almost has sort of done a similar thing to the opening of The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
Several decades before, but whereas that was spectacle like untamed. This again still feels sort of slightly twee, but then with an odd mixture of nasty and comedy. Jarring. I think it sort of sets the tone a little bit for the film.
Gladys Knight.
Very singable. Very singable.
It's singable. Yeah.
I don't mind it. It's okay. Very singable.
It's fine.
I quite like it. It's an alright thing.
Is this Maurice Binder's last hurrah as well?
Yeah.
And it's not a hurrah. Women with cameras and a ninja woman doing sort of cartwheels.
This might be one of the most phoned-in credit sequences. It's a woman in her knickers hopping around. This feels really like the sort of old rushes from old ones that they've cobbled together in the last.
Very much so.
It's just uninspiring.
And when you compare this to where they're going to go with Goldfinger, with CGI and very elaborate
barrels of guns coming out of women's mouths.
Yeah. It's old. Some of the action scenes, especially the early one, feels like the movie within a movie in Last Action Hero.
Yeah.
Like a Slater movie. And it doesn't seem to be in on the joke. Is it in on the joke? I don't know.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think it is. I think what you've got there is something, again, being pulled in two different directions. You're going slightly more aggressive to try and fit in with the tone of different films that are coming out at the time. But you're also rooted in a sort of a style that has been a feature of these films for a couple of decades now. And so what you get, the end result, is something that almost looks like parody. Because it's kind of doing neither one nor the other particularly well. I wouldn't say it's in on the joke, it's just suboptimal, I think is a polite way of putting it.
Linking to Die Hard, just going back, we do get both Johnson and Johnson.
You do, yeah.
That's something.
Yeah.
Agent Johnson, this is Special Agent Johnson.
Oh, how you doing?
No relation.
The wedding's embarrassing. There's a lot of bad extras dancing around with no music, clearly. John Glenn just going, we're going to get this all done in one day, the wedding.
Yeah, absolutely. Just dance. Just dance. You know, you've been to a wedding, you know what you do, just dance.
James Bond kisses the bride a lot.
I've never been to a wedding where the bride kisses, presumably the best man, quite as much as that.
On the lips.
Yeah, thanks for
repeatedly.
coming. While the groom sits in his office like the Godfather, not even enjoying his own wedding. He deserved to have his legs chewed.
Great, we're in for the revenge movie. Well, he arrives and we get maybe one of the silliest scenes in the movie where every animal is involved, every sea creature is involved. There's a shark that appears that stops Sharky from helping, which is like something from a video game which goes, you're not meant to go back here yet, carry on going this way.
Yeah.
Until you figure out the shark riddle.
It's you try to open the doors of the mansion in Resident Evil and the dog barks and oh, I have to stay in the mansion.
Yeah. And then we have a scene where he throws a man into some wobbly spaghetti maggots.
Yeah.
And he literally throws a man into an electric eel tank. And is this your hard-cutting action revenge movie or what, you fucking tossers? I'm fed up with it. It really pissed me off this time watching it. The bar fight. Again, we're gonna have a bar fight and it's a tough... She's got a shotgun, he's got a flip knife. Nonsense.
It's Blues Brothers.
Yep. Everyone starts to fight and the woman keeps dancing. Yeah.
Again, tone all over the place.
The violent one. Touché. They go to the fictional country of Ifmuth because they didn't want to say Panama was corrupt. And it's all filmed in Mexico. Some of the locations are quite nice. And the president of Ifmuth is one of the sons of the guy who played Karim Bey in From Russia With Love.
You know, I don't even think I like any of the location stuff in Mexico. At least with The Living Daylights, you had some nice location photography.
Really
it looked like
good.
for the first time you'd gone to the other side of the Iron Curtain and it felt like a Cold War spy movie. With this, I can't conjure one image in my mind's eye.
Well, we watched
this film about the location photography in Mexico.
We watched some crappy thing online, you know, and there seemed to be one of the things just like, well, Chubby wanted to go to this friends of his house, so we filmed in his house.
Yeah.
You can see how gorgeous it is. It's a beautiful setting. And the Baron was a friend of Cubby Broccoli's and extended every facility to him.
Another thing where the film is all over the place story-wise, he's about to kill him, and then ninjas turn up. And there's this whole very small section of the movie where ninjas turn up, and he fights ninjas, and then the ninjas are all blown up by a tank. Now, at one point, I know that License to Kill, they wanted to set it in China, but then I think it was Bertolucci had filmed The Last Emperor, and they thought, oh, let's not do that, let's just go to Mexico. And then clearly at some point they just went, what about this scene with the ninjas? Keep it in.
For me, this kind of feels like
ninjas.
Someone had gone back on draft 2 or 3 and said, well, you've got 40 pages here without an action scene or something. Throw in some ninjas.
What's something for the previous draft we had? Well, that's set in China. Just get it in.
Stick them in. Okay, you feel additional unnecessary narrative threads start to show their head here in the film, and you don't need them. We're into the Bolivian water cartel
in
territory here.
Well, then about 5 minutes later, there's this whole thing about Stinger missiles that's come out of nowhere, and he's going to shoot down commercial airlines. He's threatening. What?
This whole middle section in Isthmus City kind of sums up everything that isn't working in this film, and it feels like a load of shit that's been thrown in. Perhaps because they didn't have any good ideas, or perhaps they felt the audience would expect it. So we have a long sequence where Bond goes gambling and he orders a vodka martini, shaken not stirred.
Shaken, not stirred.
And despite the fact that he's gone rogue and is operating without the support or even the permission of MI6, Q just turns up. Q just turns up because, well, we got to have Q in the film, and he brings a shitload of gadgets with him.
Again, if there was a film that didn't need it.
Didn't need them, so we get Q and we get a load of gadgets.
And what's great is he's on his own, license revoked, as it was called at one point.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's
He
great.
isn't.
Yeah, he is all the help in the fucking world. The CIA and the main gadget man.
This kind of epitomises it feels like a lack of invention here, or just a desperation, or a we have to chuck these things in, and it feels like we have a 40-odd minute section that just does not need to be there. That's been, I don't know, crowbarred in because we've got to tick these boxes. We've got to tick dinner jacket, casino, gambling, vodka martini, shaken not stirred, Q, gadgets, ninjas.
This whole going back and watching it again slowly with a friend watching each one and just realising, oh, the 60s, that was good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The 60s was Bond.
Oh, I tell you, the cars and the suits and Connery.
Imagine a wedding, something set in a wedding in the 60s. How classy they would have done that.
Yeah. Wouldn't have been fucking Key West.
The film has a saving grace. A big saving grace.
Yeah.
The final truck chase is, I think, one of the best action scenes in Bond in the 80s for sure. I think it's a fantastic chase.
The one thing that pulls this back, just when you think it was going to be a disaster, it leaves you with a nice dessert. A fantastic action sequence at the end where, hey, they went for it. They went completely 100% in, and it's great.
Remarkable stunt work.
Yeah.
And well thought out and plotted, and where they are and the I mean, there's some scenes where they're not on a cliff anymore and they're doing a lot of the stunts on a playing field, but you're enjoying it so much you don't care. It's like the Jurassic Park big gap, in the T-Rex scene.
Yeah.
If you're moving it that quickly and you're invested, and then fucking Sanchez has got an Uzi and then a machete, it raises something that's kind of really boring, and at the very end you go, oh, okay, there we go. Not only is this a good James Bond action sequence, it feels like an action sequence, an 80s action sequence, and that's the one thing where they've hit their mark.
And this feels nicely off-type, because it's not Bond in an Aston Martin or a Lotus. It's not a high-speed chase with gadgets or anything. He's driving a fucking lorry filled with explosive cocaine at, I guess, relatively low speed.
Yes.
But it's fantastic.
It's brilliant.
And a brilliant practical stunts. They built a lorry with like a stabilizer on the side, but the stuntman was so good he didn't even need it.
And the timing of it landing on that truck.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. More than makes up for the complete hash they make of the stunt in Diamonds Are Forever when he goes down the alley into. They finally got it right.
Yeah.
They pulled off a two-wheeled car stunt or a lorry stunt brilliantly.
I do wish it had just immediately ended. Again, we don't need the love interest with just him setting the fucker on fire and it blowing up. Great shot of Timothy Dalton really running away from that. Again, plus on Timothy Dalton, he's in a lot of this. He's the Harrison Ford. He'll do the punching, the falling over, and the jumping or whatever. And you feel like he can do it.
As far as he can, he'll try and do his own stunts, and it's a point of pride in the interviews he does about it. As he says, I have to try and make the audience believe that this is Bond, and that means them seeing me do it as much as possible. And, you have to give him credit for that.
Yeah.
He really throws himself into it. It's good.
I wish the film had just ended. The man on fire and James Bond walking away. Just walking away with fucking not walking away, the old, cliche, but just walking off into the desert and you go, the end, James Bond got his revenge. But no, we've got to go back to this love triangle. So they go to a party. Lupe turns up with a lizard, which now looks like a handbag.
It looks dead.
It looks dead. And she's like, but I love you. And then Bouvier sees her and is upset that they kiss. So James Bond goes, here's El Presidente. Go from being a prisoner from one person to the new leader of the Poor woman. Then, totally out of character, he jumps in a pool, drags her in, they make out, and Timothy Dalton's era is over with a blink from a fish.
A wink?
A wink from a fish. We couldn't see the other side, so we
Oh, you mean? It's the last one that Chubby Broccoli properly produces. Last one that John Glenn directs. There's a gap now. Quite a long gap until GoldenEye. And it does feel like it's an end of an era. There's a break now. And you kind of feel like it's needed.
Mm-hmm.
I guess kind of, it's like the position we're in now, after No Time to Die, where you do feel like, you know, if they take 5 or 6 years out of this, I think that's for the best.
Yeah. I feel like Daniel Craig. Do you want to do another James Bond drinking video? I'd rather slash my wrists.
And never mind the message in the ravioli.